Hello, I'm Dr. John Bray-Morris, and this is the video series Shooting Up in the Dark, where we focus on drug addiction and all related matters, including getting clean, recovery, opioid medications, and chronic pain. If you are new to this channel, check out the introductory videos. I am a physician and a person in recovery from opioid addiction. All of our discussions are relevant to substance addiction of all kinds, including to alcohol. And today, we will focus on the following common myth. Myth number 1. People addicted to alcohol and drugs are making a choice. They have the capacity and power to stop and to live a normal life. Okay, so before we get further into discussing this, I just want to say that, like all myths, there is some truth in this statement. And we'll explore what is true about that statement, but there's far more in that statement that reflects misunderstanding. It's normal to have frustration and anger and judge and feel bewildered on how and why a person would choose to continue using drugs and alcohol when that is killing them, why they would choose basically a slow form of suicide, to destroy themselves and hurt everyone around them. So what is going on? I can certainly understand this because I have been in most of these situations myself, and I'm also, as an addict in recovery, I've been the one who so many other people were hurt by and couldn't possibly understand what I was doing to myself. And so given the various perspectives I have, especially of being the addict and the person caught in that disease, allow me to share my perspectives with you. I think you'll find them valuable. It is true that drug users or people who are addicted to drugs did make a choice to use initially, in most cases, unless that was forced on them, which does happen in cases of human trafficking, bondage, and prostitution. But for the most part, people who are addicts today, at one point, did have a choice and made repeated choices, very unwise, selfish choices. Now, addiction is much more complex and a whole different dynamic than drug abuse, and we'll review that. But clearly, to become addicted, every person has made a series of choices to get themselves into that position. What you need to realize is that drug addiction is a distinct condition or disease beyond drug abuse. Addiction gets into the soul of a person, and its dynamics are powerful and progressive, such that it can totally control someone, even a very strong-willed person, or a person in the middle of their career, like I was, as a physician who had never used or abused drugs or alcohol before. It can take control of anyone regardless of their personal qualities or background. I considered myself immune from addiction just because of all the adversity I had faced during my life and had never really drank heavily or used other drugs heavily, and had survived work circumstances and life circumstances as well. But I was not immune. There's no such thing as immunity to addiction. Before my experience, of course, I looked it down on other people who had become addicts and thought that they were making a choice, that they were of low character, that they didn't have moral fiber, they were just somehow weak and unable to handle their personal affairs. But I'm here to tell you that that's not necessarily the case at all. Like we'll discuss, addiction is so powerful that it hijacks the brain, and there is a biochemical basis we will show you for why that is. But let's, before we go any further, talk about or establish a definition of addiction. And this is a definition I've come up with based on the sum total of all my research, my personal experience, interviews with other people, and observation, which really captures all of the different dynamics and essential elements of addiction. It's actually quite consistent with other definitions, perhaps just a little bit more complete. Drug addiction is a chronic, progressive, relapsing, and potentially fatal but treatable brain disease, characterized by the compulsive and obsessive use of a substance, total dependence on it for daily function and for survival, willingness to violate legal, ethical, and moral principles to use, continued use despite severe negative consequences directly related to using, and eventual global impairment of the person mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and relationally, until the addiction dictates all decisions and actions of a person's life. Now, if that sounds radical to you, then good, because addiction is a radical disease. It's an insanity. It affects life profoundly. So we'll discuss this throughout many videos, but that is a definition which is extremely accurate based on my experience personally and with others. How and why does a person become addicted? These are topics which of their own, which again will create future videos, but for those predisposed to addiction, it always comes down to personal pain. The drug being experienced as a solution, a balm alleviating the pain, and the answer to a longing or emptiness or a void, which you might not even be aware of, or a person may not be able to articulate it, but nonetheless it's real. It gives a profound sense of relief, that everything is completely okay in a way that they have never felt before but have always craved. Once a person with addiction has this experience, they chase it with abandon. And truthfully, this is only human. We all chase that which makes us feel validated or loved. And to the addict, the drug is associated with love, with acceptance, with being safe, with being comforted, with being accepted and okay, and takes away the emotional component of pain in a very powerful, effective way. That's why it's so alluring. For me as an addict, using became associated with something that I had always been searching for, craved, or needed deeply. Some deep emotional need, spiritual need, safety, a sense of validation, and purpose. But using created that feeling for me, as it does for almost all people who do become addicted to alcohol or drugs. So the person, when they use, as an experience, has like an epiphany experience, such that it's a combination of peace, absence of pain, absence of any kind of perceived negativity. So the experience can be very emotionally and mentally gratifying and powerful. It feels like the arrival of something we've always been waiting for. And as humans, we all carry this sense of being inadequate sometimes, often feel a deep void inside ourselves, an emptiness that we're trying to fill with different things. We question our meaning, our purpose, our existence, and a lot of pain, existential pain, arises from that. And of course, there are many different ways to deal with that human dilemma, some healthier than others, and some destructive, like addictions. But for the person predisposed to be addicted to a particular substance, when that substance enters their brain and works on it, and they experience that ecstasy, that salvation, that they've found the ultimate answer to life that makes them okay, they finally feel normal, good about themselves, it's incredibly powerful. So this is why human pain is behind all addictions. And it's good at any possible time that you're able to relate to, or there's an analogy that might make sense to you, I'm going to provide that. So think about falling in love maybe for the first time, or think about those moments when you've just been thoughtless and speechless while looking at something beautiful, maybe the birth of a child, nature, something transcendent, when you just knew that everything was okay, you had purpose and meaning regardless of the fact that you didn't understand it, and just how amazing that experience was. This is what happens to the addict initially when they start using. And this is a major reason why they chase the using lifestyle, even to the exclusion of their own personality, moral values, and character. And also, there is no rationality behind any of this. Addiction is a disease, it's a mental disease, and it's a form of insanity. So people need to understand that. It's not that like an addict can be reasoned with, even in moments of relative clarity during addiction, which happen, where they have a little bit of insight into their situation. But the disease has control over them. They're, in a sense, insane, under control of this psychological phenomenon or condition, and have very little power on their own. Now, in terms of choices, once in the pattern of true addiction, choices become narrow. Choice becomes overwhelmed by the survival instinct. The addict sincerely believes and viscerally knows, quote unquote, that acting on the addictive drive is the only way they continue to live, to be okay, to survive. And over time, he or she repeatedly experiences, while the drug wears off, an exaggerated return of negative feelings. So this is when coming down off of drugs, because it's always up and down and up and down. But when coming down, the person starts experiencing a lot of negative feelings very intensely, and they become more and more intense. Shame, self-hate, profound fear. And then the withdrawal symptoms start as well. And withdrawal, those symptoms themselves are terrifying. Being in withdrawal is like the ultimate negative reinforcement tool. Makes a person feel horrific on a physical, psychological, mental, and emotional basis in a way I can't even describe. It far exceeds any other cause of suffering that I've experienced or known. So once that withdrawal kicks in, physical symptoms as well as the psychological symptoms, it really truly feels like a person is dying. I remember feeling certain that I was dying and actually hoping to die if this feeling didn't go away. So it's not just a matter of feeling uncomfortable, it's a matter of feeling very much, it feels like a matter of life and death. The positive reinforcement, which has been described as being, quote, kissed by God, and it's been described in a number of other ways too, but it's incredibly rewarding. It's the exact opposite of the withdrawal feeling. It provides that comfort, security, warmth. You feel impermeable to anything negative. And so it's perceived by the addict as a solution, as the ultimate solution to fix their life, to make everything okay, make them okay. And it doesn't take long until they're convinced that this is what they need to survive, to live, to have a normal life. And at first that illusion is easier to believe because the consequences of using haven't yet accumulated, or the most severe ones haven't. The person may be able to continue function, and in their mind, function and feel better than ever they have ever before for a period of time. But there's this both positive and negative reinforcement, and together they're incredibly powerful. So the addict becomes obsessed with maintaining this state of bliss, avoiding this hell, and seeks after obtaining and using more and more to stay in the most pleasant and functional state possible.